Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to teach you in depth about the exact biological chain of command that controls your stress. We're taking those abstract, sometimes overwhelming feelings of anxiety and transforming them into fascinating, hard science. We're going to literally look under the hood of your brain and body to understand the highly coordinated neural and hormonal systems that are designed to protect you, and crucially, what happens when they go into overdrive.
All right, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the fight-or-flight reflex, then head inside the HPA axis, explore the gas and the brakes, uncover the mechanisms of chronic stress, and wrap up with rewiring the stress response. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover. Section 1. The fight-or-flight reflex and your autonomic nervous system. We'll kick things off with those immediate physical reactions you're already deeply familiar with whenever a sudden threat pops up in your environment.
This setup right here brilliantly illustrates a concept called reciprocal inhibition. Basically, at the exact same time your brain is pumping out hormones, your autonomic nervous system completely flips its priorities. Your rapid response team, the sympathetic division, prepares you for immediate physical action. It ramps up your heart rate, boosts your blood pressure, dilates your pupils so you can take in more visual info, and mobilizes your glucose reserves for instant muscular energy. But to fuel that massive survival response, the parasympathetic division has to actively depress non-essential calming functions, like digestion and growth. This is exactly why you get a dry mouth or, feel those butterflies in your stomach right before public speaking. Your body is literally shutting down your digestive tract to power up your heart rate for survival.
Moving right along to Section 2, inside the HPA axis, your body's hormonal chain of command. Let's see how we build beyond that initial reflex into a highly coordinated, multi-stage hormonal system. So this biological chain of command is the primary hormonal component of your stress response, and it functions in 3 incredibly precise steps. Step 1, under stressful conditions, specialized neurons in the paraventricular nucleus of your hypothalamus release a peptide called CRH. Step 2 happens in mere milliseconds. That CRH travels into the portal circulation of the pituitary gland, prompting it to immediately secrete ACTH right into your bloodstream. Finally, Step 3, the ACTH travels all the way down to your adrenal cortex, which sits just above your kidneys, and basically orders it to deploy the heavy artillery. This perfectly synchronized cascade, from start to finish, is what we call the HPA axis.
And that heavy artillery? It's cortisol. Cortisol is a seriously powerful steroid hormone. Once it's released, it circulates throughout your entire body and your brain, binding to specific receptors. It physically influences gene expression, it increases cellular metabolism by promoting calcium entry through voltage-gated channels, and it vastly heightens your overall vigilance. The crucial takeaway here is that acute, short-term cortisol is actually a good thing. It is an incredible evolutionary tool that heightens your alertness, helps you cope with an immediate challenge, and ultimately keeps you alive.
Which brings us to Section 3, the gas and the brakes of brain regulation. Because, let's be real, a powerful engine needs precise control. Let's look at how the brain regulates this intense response in a dynamic push-pull fashion.
Your brain actually operates with a built-in gas pedal and brake system to make sure your stress levels match the situation. The amygdala, that's your stimulator. This little almond-shaped structure is absolutely critical for processing fear. When it detects a threat, its central nucleus activates, sending a signal through the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis to trigger those CRH-releasing neurons in the hypothalamus. Essentially, the amygdala is constantly scanning for threats to hit the gas. In stark contrast, the hippocampus acts as your brakes. It contains a super high density of glucocorticoid receptors that act like little sensors detecting circulating cortisol. When cortisol levels rise, the hippocampus becomes active and provides essential negative feedback. It firmly applies the brakes, inhibiting any further release of CRH from the hypothalamus just as soon as the danger has safely passed.
Now for Section 4, chronic stress and its mechanisms of damage. Having established this absolute masterpiece of survival engineering, we have to ask the dark question. What happens when this exact machinery gets weaponized by chronic stress?
Here's the catch. The brain's response is perfectly designed for short-term survival, but if the threat never leaves, sustained cortisol becomes incredibly toxic. Chronic, unavoidable stress leads to high levels of cortisol that cause excitotoxicity in the brain. Research in primates and rodents reveals a pretty chilling biological reality. Prolonged exposure causes the dendrites on your neurons to literally wither away, and eventually, the neurons in the hippocampus just die. Now remember what we talked about in the last section? The hippocampus is your brake pedal. When you lose those specific neurons, the brain literally loses its biological brakes. This creates a devastating vicious cycle. You have escalating stress, which causes brain damage, which then reduces your ability to turn off the stress response, leading to even higher cortisol levels. It's a massive compounding problem.
But before we get into medicine, it is just fascinating to note how biology can proactively wire itself for resilience. In rat populations, early life experiences have a profound impact on the system. High levels of maternal care, specifically tactile stimulation, like grooming, actually trigger a long-lasting increase in the expression of glucocorticoid receptor genes in the pup's hippocampus. Think about that for a second. Experiencing a caring environment literally builds more of those vital receptors in their brain, providing them with more biological brakes and granting them a lifelong built-in resilience to stressors as adults.
Finally, let's explore Section 5, rewiring the response by targeting circuits. We're going to look at how modern pharmacology attempts to repair and rewire this damaged circuitry in humans suffering from severe anxiety disorders. We can actually physically intervene in this circuitry using a few distinct approaches. Benzodiazepines, for example, work by enhancing the effect of GABA, which is the brain's major inhibitory neurotransmitter. This quickly ramps up the brain's natural inhibitory signals to suppress those hyperactive circuits. Alternatively, SSRIs, while widely known for treating depression, have a really profound effect here. Long-term treatment can actually increase the number of glucocorticoid receptors in the hippocampus. Just like the maternal care in rats, this gradually rebuilds those lost biological brakes and strengthens the whole negative feedback system. Finally, we can look toward the future with CRH antagonists. These represent a totally new frontier of drugs that might one day block CRH receptors entirely, basically stopping the chain of command before the stress response even has a chance to initiate.
Understanding that our ancient biology simply wasn't designed for endless modern stressors leaves us with one incredibly vital question. You now know exactly how your HPA axis functions, and you know the very real toxicity of a malfunctioning hippocampus. The stress machinery in your brain is immensely powerful, but it absolutely requires downtime to reset and repair itself. So knowing how this vicious cycle works, what deliberate actions are you going to take today to help your brain hit those essential biological brakes?